Hello everyone, welcome on our TV. My name is Andrew Kadeba. We are at the Kigali Convention Center attending the AU, the 27th African Union Summit. We are trying to talk to different participants here at the AU Summit taking place here in Kigali. With me, I'm joined with Professor Benman Dawid Mazumul. He's the acting director of Dala Omal Institute of the University of the Western Cape, that's South Africa. He also serves as the chairperson of the African Commission of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. You're welcome on the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
Maybe a quick one. As we are convening here for the AU Summit, can you give us the current status of the rights of children presently in Africa?
Thank you very much. That's a very valid question. Last year in November, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. The Charter currently enjoys 47 state parties on the African continent. As a committee, we are engaging with the remaining 7 countries to ratify the instrument. At the 25th anniversary of the Charter, one of the points that we noted is that a child who is born today in 2016 is actually much better off than a child that was born in 1990 at the time of the adoption of the instrument. So yes, a child born today is much better, but not every child. We still have quite a lot of work to do. We still have to reach out to those children that are in rural areas, children with disabilities, the girl child, children that are affected by armed conflict, children who are not necessarily accessing education, but also particularly quality education. The whole mantra that we have that says no mother should die while giving birth is not just only an issue that is relevant for adult women, but also for children that are actually girls because of the practice of child marriage that we have in a number of African countries. So to a certain extent, it's a scenario where we are very optimistic about because we've made significant progress, but in the meantime, we're not at a stage where we can be too complacent. The work out there still remains challenging, and it requires every state party, every stakeholder. The notion that says it takes a village to raise a child actually resonates much more here on the African continent than anywhere else in the world. So it's a collective responsibility that we need to keep on building on the progresses that we have made, also including on the achievements made in achieving a number of sustainable development goals, the Millennium Development Goals before, but again, trying to create an Africa fit for children, for all children on the continent remains working.
Professor, I mentioned about something that a child that was born in 1990 and 2016, they are totally different. So what are the emerging challenges that you're dealing with today?
The emerging challenge, we still believe that the issue of children in armed conflict is still a very critical issue that we need to address. If you look at the climax globally, which was in the 1990s, the number of countries that were in conflict was about 50-51. We're currently dealing with a lower number, and on the African continent also that number has actually reduced. But still, children that continue to be affected by armed conflict is very significant. And this is not just only in relation to children that are directly engaged in armed conflict, but also children that are in that scenario that are not able to access education, that are not able to access healthcare, whose right to life, survival and development is actually very much at risk. Children that are being violated in terms of their right to bodily integrity. Sexual abuse in the context of conflict still continues to be a very significant challenge. We are also seeing some emerging issues, for instance, in relation to climate change and how it affects children's rights. We are also seeing emerging issues in terms of the role of the private sector, the role of not the state, but the role of third parties in terms of the activities that they undertake, which may, in some instances, positively, but in other instances, negatively affect children's rights. So the list of issues that are emerging are significant. I would be remiss if I don't mention about the opportunity that is posed, that is created by the digital environment, by the internet, but also in some instances the extent to which a digital environment that is not properly regulated actually exposes children on the ground. And of course, one of the cross-cutting themes that children throughout the African continent face relates to child poverty. We need to work on increasing opportunities for parents so that the lived reality of their children is improved. The issue of cash transfers, social grants, social protection schemes still remain very, very important throughout the African continent, from north to south, east to west.
During this 27th African Union Summit held in Kigali, what are the key area concerns are you communicating to the heads of states?
I think the team, thank you very much for that important question. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much to the government of Rwanda for hosting us in a very positive way, but also I can't think of a better government than the government of Rwanda hosting this summit at this point in time, with the team focusing on human rights, particularly women's rights. So in this regard, the issue of girls' rights is very critical. So I think within that framework of the team, it's important to emphasize that the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child actually places the girl child at the center of its issues, its protections, its provisions. In fact, it is probably the first instrument at the regional level that clearly and explicitly addresses some of the challenges that girls face, including discrimination at the home setting, discrimination at the community setting, at the school setting, in all various settings. Also issues particularly pertaining to girls, such as FGM, other harmful practices, including child marriage. One of the very important and pioneering provision of the African Children's Charter is Article 11, where it talks about the need to provide with girls that actually fall pregnant while attending school additional opportunities and support so that they can actually continue to benefit from the education environment that they can benefit from. The emphasis on health, but also the role that communities play in the provision of health and the aspirations that we have to attain the highest attainable standard of health, which are also very critical to the girl child. So the team that has been identified, not just only on the base of human rights, but also on women's rights, and with a special focus for us as a committee on the girl child, are actually very timely, are very critical, and in fact creating an Africa fit for children cannot be achieved without creating an Africa fit for the girl child. So that's one of the main loud and clear messages that we want to communicate to all stakeholders, particularly the states that are gathered here. The other issue that I would like to emphasize in relation to the year with a focus on human rights is the same point that I tried to emphasize earlier, that we still have a lot of work to do, be it on education, healthcare, addressing abuse, addressing sexual abuse, trafficking, child prostitution, child pornography, are some of the lived realities of our children on the African continent. And in this regard, the issue of migration is also, and children that are actually internally displaced are also extremely critical, important issues. So the creation of an Africa fit for children is not going to be achieved on the basis of identifying peculiar provisions on a sort of a pick and choose basis from the African Children's Charter. We need to look at the Charter as a comprehensive document, as a document that has relevance for all branches of government, the executive, the legislative, but also the judiciary, but also the role that other stakeholders such as the media, faith-based organizations, civil society organizations, and so forth play in the realization of children's rights is very critical. So earlier when I said that the creation of an Africa fit for children is actually a collective responsibility, it means and requires taking the African Children's Charter in its entirety and taking responsibility for its implementation. I'm not quite sure if you were in the room this morning when I presented. I came back to the same two rules that we try to emphasize as a committee to a certain extent on a lighter note. These are two rules. Rule number one says creating an Africa fit for children requires all stakeholders to make children's best interests a priority. And rule number two says always remember rule number one.
In your report today, you highlighted something about albinism in Tanzania. What are the interventions you're expecting from the AU summit?
Thank you. We did undertake, with the kind agreement of the government of Tanzania, a mission to Tanzania around the fourth quarter of last year in 2015. We're extremely grateful for the positive gesture that has been extended by the government of Tanzania, not just only in terms of agreeing with the mission, but also hosting us while we were in country, but also making their highest level of authorities available for the conversation that we had. And we actually had very frank conversations on some of the opportunities, but also the challenges that are being faced by children with albinism. As a starting point, the issue of children with albinism face the whole violations in relation to the right to life, survival and development, but also access to healthcare services, education and so forth, are not just only peculiar to Tanzania. They are actually regional issues, and on the African continent, the issue, particularly the right to life and bodily integrity and security challenge that children with albinism face, is faced by 16 African countries. So I want to underscore that at the outset. Now, having said that, Tanzania has the largest number of persons with albinism. So by default, it has the largest number of children with albinism. And the particular focus in this mission was in relation to children with albinism in one specific holding center, which is called the Buhangija Holding Center. So some of the recommendations that came from that mission that we have already shared with the government of Tanzania include the need to have a very comprehensive plan in dealing with the challenge that children with albinism in terms of their threat to lives, the whole notion of institutionalization with a view to protect them, which was initially forwarded as a very positive move, obviously, for the protection of these children, but it was supposed to be a temporary measure. And now the children have been housed in these temporary shelters, which have been there for quite some years. So we emphasize the issue of deinstitutionalization that needs to be taken into account. We also recommended some measures in terms of administrative and legislative measures. For instance, there has been quite a lot of conversation on amending the Witchcraft Act to make sure that some of the loopholes there can actually be addressed, so that those people that are involved in these violations can actually be held accountable. Accountable is not the sole solution for bringing about an end to the challenge that children with albinism face, but it's very central to the measures that need to be put in place to address the challenge. We were very happy to see that there was quite a lot of political commitment from the president, from the first wife. We were also informed while we were on the ground about the role that some famous people in the country, including the former beauty queen in Tanzania, have continued to play. We definitely welcome that. And one of the challenges that we have identified and also gave recommendation relates to the need to increase awareness raising, the role that the National Human Rights Commission in Tanzania plays, the role that religious leaders play, the role that politicians actually play, but also critically the role that law enforcement agencies need to play. This issue needs to further be identified as being an issue that is critical. It's not an issue for tomorrow, it's actually an issue for today. We often emphasize that one thing that children do not have is time. If you actually lose 1 year in the life of a child, you have lost 6% of his or her childhood. So we have no doubt that the government of Tanzania will give this issue the very serious attention that it deserves. But increasingly, we're also realizing that the issue needs not just only one country's response, but also a regional response, because one of the things that we have anecdotal evidence for is that it is related to elections in neighboring countries as well. For instance, we were informed that body parts that were crossing borders were not just only related to the elections, local national elections that were happening in Tanzania, but also local and national elections that were happening in the neighboring countries, which gives you a very clear indication that as a trafficking in body parts takes place, then it requires a comprehensive regional response in order for it to be comprehensively successful.
Before we wind up this interview, according to the UNICEF research, it shows that approximately 20,000 children die every day because of poverty. This AU agenda of 2063, is there anything that you're trying to deal with this issue?
Thank you. If you look at the global figures, the number of children that die every day as a result, some of it as a result of preventable diseases, is about 5,000. And a good number of that is actually within the African continent. So it still begs the question, if we actually know how to address these preventable diseases, some of them waterborne diseases related to diarrhea and malaria and so forth, if we actually know some of the cost-effective, not just effective, but cost-effective measures that need to be put in place to address some of these challenges, then it begs the question, the extent to which we are actually paying close attention to these issues. I agree with the statistics that you brought from UNICEF. Again, our understanding is that where the political commitment is in place, then the economic commitment actually comes into place. Political commitment, when the political commitment is in place, the engagement space is much more stronger and solid. So it's not just only engaging with those that are directly working with and for children, but also it's engaging with you guys, the media, media, how you portray children's rights issues in the media. It's engaging with religious leaders. On the African continent, we still believe that a good portion of children are still regulated within the informal legal system, within customary law, religious law, and the extent to which customary law plays a negative or a positive impact on children's rights, and religious law plays positive or negative has direct implications on the lived reality of children on the ground. So it again comes back to the notion that children are not just to be seen, but also to be heard. So they need to have a stake in this process. But secondly, the whole notion that says that children are actually mini human beings with mini human rights, it's from the previous decades. It's not that relevant, if any relevance during 2016. We do believe that Agenda 2063 actually takes a lot of these issues into account. The issue of political commitment, which needs to take into account, which will bring about economic commitment. The issue of engaging with the various stakeholders that have a role to play for the realization of an Africa fit for children. It also emphasizes and underscores issues pertaining to accountability and awareness raising and so forth. So with the new agenda that we're working on as the African Committee, which is Agenda 2040, we've taken quite a number of elements from Agenda 2063, and we have no doubt whatsoever that Agenda 2063, also with Agenda 2040 from the African Committee, will help in pushing the boundaries forward in creating an Africa fit for children.
Professor, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That's Professor Benma Dawit Mazu, is the chairperson of African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. It has been a pleasure for RBA to have him on this show, and thanks for being with us. My name is Andrew Kareba. Stay tuned.